Hey, handy people, I'm going to show you today how to build a birdhouse out of scrap wood. This is part one of the series, so we're not going to complete it today, we're just going to get started. First of all, you got to get yourself some scrap wood, and then you got to get yourself a building tool. I've got one right here. Okay, I'm going to get started with this piece of scrap wood. I noticed that since it's a piece of scrap, it actually already has a screw in it. So the first thing I have to do is remove any screws or nails that are already in the wood. So I'll remove this screw now. Got it, I got the screw out. Okay, the next thing I have to do is take a measurement on this board and cut it in half. So let's see, I'll measure it with this. Right there, and then I'll mark it. Okay, and now I need to cut it in half. So I'll use my building tool to cut it in half. Okay. So I got it cut in half a different direction than I was planning, but that's not a problem. That'll work fine. So now I've got to hook the two halves together at a 90-degree angle. Let's see. I seem to be a little short on workbench right now, but I can fix that. Just like that. There we go. So I'm going to screw these together using the screw I pulled out of the old piece of wood and my building tool. So I'll go ahead and screw these together at a 90-degree angle like that. Sometimes you got to get it started you got to get the screw started. There we go. Yeah, so sometimes this is a little tricky. A little tricky for beginners, but once you've done it as much as I have, you'll have no problem with it. Well, that's more or less holding it together. And there, I'll give you a close-up shot of that. Yeah, I think we're well underway now. So join me for part two next time. Until then, stay handy. I don't know about that guy. Seems like maybe he needs professional help. What he doesn't understand is we need to use different tools for different jobs. Just like in math. We have to use different tools for different jobs. We have to use different math tools for different math jobs. We have to use, like, even in just multiplication, there's different tools that we use. And you have to know which tool to use for which job. So far this year, I can think of six. I can think of 6 different tools, 6, that we've learned just for multiplication. We're going to review 5 of those tools today. We're going to review 5 of those multiplication tools that you've learned. To do this, you're going to need, it's student book page 148, but I don't want you to get it out of the student book. Here's why. An additional page has been added to the PDF in today's math slide. And if you go to the paper book, you're not going to have that additional page. So get today's worksheet off of the math slide. Do that now, and then come on back. Okay, you're back. Hope you have that. All right, we're going to take a look at these 5 of the multiplication tools that you've learned this year. Let's start with Number one, we're going to call this number one. The area model and four partial products. We sometimes say an array, but it's the area model and four partial products. Let's take a look. So on all of these problems, we are multiplying 25 by 64. That's what we're doing on all of them. But there's different ways to do that. So number one, we're using the area model, or the array. And over here, we're going to do the four partial products. So we'll start with A. I can see that A, which is right here, is 4 this way and 5 this way. So over here, I'm going to write 4 times 5. And 4 times 5 is 20. All right. Make sure you're keeping up with me. Next, we're going to do section B, which is right here. I can see that section B is 5 by 60. Obviously, it's not drawn to in proportion. 5 by 60. So over here, we'll write 5 times 60. Now, 5 times 6 is 30. So 5 times 60 would be 300. Now on to section C. C is right here, and I see that it is 4 by 20. Again, not to proportion, but that's okay. 4 times 20. So let's write 4 times 20. And 4 times 2 is 8, so 4 times 20 is 80. And our last section, D, which is right here. D is 20 by 60. So let's write 20 times 60. Okay, 2 times 6 is 12. So 20 times 60 would be 12 plus 1, 2 extra zeros, 1200. Now we have to add these up. I'm going to look for easy groups to put together. 1200 and 300, that would be 1500. And I can combine the 20 and 80 to make 100. So 100 plus 1500 would be 1600, or 1600. Okay, now let's take a look at a second type of multiplication tool that you've learned. It's the doubling and halving technique. You actually learned that quite a bit earlier this year. Let's review how that works. Here it is. Number 2, we're going to do the same problem, 25 times 64, but instead of using the array or the area model, we're going to use doubling and halving. All right, so 25 times 64, well, let's see which would be the best to double and which would be the best to cut in half. Well, 25 is an odd number. We probably aren't going to try to cut that in half. Plus, I know that by adding 25s, we can, by doubling 25s, we can pretty easily get to 100, which is a great number to use. So let's double the 25, which is going to be 50, and half the 64. Half of 60 is 30, half of 4 is 2, so it's 32. Now let's double and half again. Double 50, we get 100. Half 32, we get 16. And 100 times 16 is, of course, 1600, or 1600. Same answer as when we use the area model. There you have it. 2 techniques. Now let's look at a third one. This one you probably remember too, using a ratio table. You've done quite a bit of those. In fact, I wonder how much review you even need, but let's do it anyway. Here's a ratio table. So we're doing 64 times 25. Well, 64 times 1 would be 64. So what if we doubled it? 2 64s. Well, 2 60s is 120, 2 4s is 8, so 128. Okay, we can do 64 times 10. Well, that's pretty easy. That would be 640. And now that makes it pretty easy to do 64 times 5 because we just cut that 640 in half and we get half of 600 is 300, half of 40 is 20, 320. Now we have 64 times 2 right here. What if we made that 10 times bigger? What if we made it 20? So we just made this 10 times bigger. And so let's make 128 10 times bigger. So it would be 128 10 times bigger means we add a 0 to it. And now we kind of have the things we need because we're trying to do 64 times 25. There's 64 times 20 right there. There's 64 times 5. Let's combine those two. 1,280 plus 320. Well, I can combine the 20 with the 80, and that takes us up to 1,300 plus another 300 right here. That takes us up to 1,600. And that's with 25. All right. This fourth tool, you're not going to probably recognize by this name, using quarters. But you've actually done it before. In fact, you did it not very long ago. And when you see the example, I think you're going to go, oh yeah, that thing. So let's take a look at what we mean by using quarters. Using quarters. 1/4 are nice because we can kind of think in terms of money. 1/4, it's like a quarter. But right now, let's think about 64 times 1/4. That means 1/4 times 64, same thing, or 1/4 of 64. So what is 1/4 of 64? Well, I'm going to think about what is 1/2 of 64. Well, let's say that this is 64 right here. So half of it would be 32. And then if we cut that half in half, so we have like just this section right here, half of 32 would be 16. So 16. So half of 64 is 32, half of 32 is 16. That gives us 1/4 of 64. So 1/4 of 64 is 16. And now we can do 64 times 25 hundredths. We've actually already done it right here. Same thing. 1/4 and 25 hundredths are the same thing. So the answer is going to be the same. So now it says, how can you use these results to find 25 times 64? Well, remember, if 64 times 0.25 is 16, if we move that decimal point over 2 places, we move the decimal point over 2 places here and fill in with zeros. There it is, 1,600. All right, it's time for the fifth and final multiplication tool, and that is the standard multiplication algorithm. Let's review it. The standard algorithm. All right. I'm going to make it big so I can fit my numbers in the squares. 5 times 4 is 20. Now I can't write 20 like that because that 2 is going to be in the way of other stuff I need to put in. So instead, I'm going to write the 0 there and carry the 2 up here. Then 5 times 6, that's 30, plus this 2 takes us up to 32. Okay, now I'm done using that, and since we're never going to have a 1s times a 1 again. We aren't going to use the 1s column anymore. So we need that placeholder. All right, I'm going to get some of my mess out of here. And let's go 2 times 4, which is 8. And then 2 times 6, which is 12. And now I just add those together. 8 and 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 3 and 2 and 1 is 6. And nothing plus 1 is 1. And there is our answer, same as all the others, 1,600. Now it says, which strategy do you think is best for this combination and why? You're going to have to answer that on your own. Which do you think is best and why? Once you're done answering that, you're going to go down to this section. And it gives you a problem. 39 times 25. You're going to use 2 methods for solving it. 2 of these methods. It could be method 1, method 2, method 3, method 4, or method 5. You're going to choose any 2. Do one of them here. Make sure you put in your answer. Tell what your method is. And then a second one. Tell what the method is. Do your work here. And tell your final answer. When you're done with that, you're done with this math assignment.